Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning in today. In this session, we will hear from Nina Mathisen, and she is a Developer Relations Manager at Signicat, and she will tell you about their new offering called Signicat for Startups, and you'll learn more about how authentication and signature services really work and how your startup can leverage these services. We have also invited Sebastian Martens Harung, who is the co-founder at Cameo, who will talk to us about their experiences with using Signicat for startups. So, without further ado, I think I will give the microphone over to you, Nina Mathisen.
Thank you. Hi, thanks for tuning in. Like Falcon said, we're here to learn a little bit about Signicat Express, and I want to really explain what authentication is and what our signature API does, and when do you actually need it, because that's not necessarily something that's intuitive for everyone. And then I'll explain a little bit about the startup package. And finally, I have the great pleasure of interviewing a successful scale-up who have been using our product for a number of years, no longer a startup, the crowdlending company Cameo. So without further ado, this is our offer for startups only, which is why we reached out to NCE Finance Innovation, because our observation is that startups are not especially different from other companies. They do need all the same things that larger companies need. But as we have all noticed, all of us coming from current or previous startups, that you have less money to spend on the same things. At the same time, I'm assuming that if you're watching this, you're probably within fintech or prop tech or related industries. Basically, you have so many tech components, tech building blocks that you're using without actually being a tech company, unless you choose to define yourself as such. But you don't build these components yourselves. You integrate them. So you would not go ahead and build a location service from scratch. You would simply use Google Maps, and you wouldn't build a communication platform from scratch. You would use Twilio. And to the extent that you are dependent on providing onboarding or login or signature, then you could use Signicat. So Signicat, to do a little bit of self-promotion here, we are the leading provider of digital identity services across Europe. We do have the most EIDs in the most comprehensive platform. And what this really means is that if you manage to, have success in Norway or Sweden or wherever you start, then you can expand quite rapidly to another European country and offer the same services with, the same login mechanism, but you just use a different EID. And I'll explain how that works. So yes, what we really are offering is a simple, easy way to onboard users and allow them to log in and allow them to sign documents. And I think one could easily say that this is a necessary building block. This is something that, as I mentioned, is not always affordable for a startup. But like so many other API companies, we have had a look around and seen, okay, maybe we should offer this for free to startups. Maybe we shouldn't, have the same expectations. Maybe we should, yeah. So I think it's important to state also that Signicat was a startup 14 years ago. And we also, got our fair share of help. And at the same time, the service that we provide, onboarding and secure login, it's one of those features that has to be just right. It is make or break. If it's a little bit slow, if it's a bit buggy, or if it doesn't feel safe, it really is, a non-negotiable feature. It is make or break. So it's really quite essential that one gets it right. And that's why we want to offer it for free. So let's just deep dive into what this actually means. So authentication is, yes, it's about allowing a person to onboard themselves using public key interface-based EIDs. That's things like Norwegian Bank ID, Swedish Bank ID, Danish NEM ID, soon Danish MIT ID, Mobilvarmai, it's this Finnish word. You can also use social media IDs. You can also use SMS OTP. You can have two-factor authentication. There's many ways you can make this your own. So Signature API, it's about, yes, creating a signable document and making sure that the person who is supposed to receive it can receive it and sign it and send it back to you. So this is especially important for like contracts and HR documents. And yeah, there are many use cases for this. And here too, you can really make it your own. You can ask the people to sign in a given order. You can set deadlines. You can have multiple signers. You can have notifications via SMS or email, and so on. I think I have given a short explanation now, but I would like to just deep dive a little bit into what authentication really means, because it is sometimes a little bit tricky to understand. And I just love this example so much because we're called Signicat. So you guys are startups and you guys all have great ideas, but let's picture this. You're developing an app that is for cat owners to get in touch with cat sitters, of course. But as we know, people may be reluctant to hire a cat sitter if the cat sitter can just remain anonymous and could be anyone. So really what you need to do is ensure that the cat sitter is exactly who they claim to be by verifying their identity, and which is probably something both parties should do, both the cat owner and the cat sitter. So what we do is we offer EIDs to make this process quick and secure, which, you know, these are all familiar EIDs to you, I'm guessing. You can obviously also use social login if what you're offering does not require the same level of authentication, of security, I mean. So onboarding, secure onboarding for the first time with single or multi-factor authentication, that is one very, very common use case. And another is obviously, you know, when you first have them on board and you want to make sure that they can access their account, access their My Page, and that only they can do it. No other strangers can come in. Then you want to create a secure login for all the users of the platform. And again, you would be using EIDs for this, and you can also choose social login. You can choose different methods. You can choose most likely a slightly less secure or tedious, or, you know, you can go from offering bank ID for first-time login, sign up, and social login for returning. This is really something that you can shape in a way that makes it easier for your users, and it's up to you. So that, you know, returning users is another very, very classic use case. So we offer the authentication in both REST API and OpenID Connect. And if this is like totally Greek for you, and you don't have a developer on board, I would totally recommend OIDC, because it has, it's not something you can embed directly into a web page or a mobile screen, but it is something that is really easy to use and is just as good. Whereas REST API is a little bit more flexible, it's a little bit more customizable, and you could put it directly into the interface. And how it is really, really quick to do. So we do offer full assistance and full documentation with lots of information on our APIs and sample code and Postman collections, and also video tutorials. And I think this really shows that this can take very short time. So the OIDC authentication video takes 6 minutes, and half of that is just Q&A. So if you just click your way through it, it takes very short time. Creating a sample application in C# with the authentication REST API takes a bit longer, probably a bit longer than 8 minutes, because you have to write out a lot of the code. And doing that for the Signature API takes even longer, because it is a bit more of a complex product, but it's still something that, you know, you have all the tools to do. You have the developer pages, and you have everything you need. So if you are not a developer and you don't fancy the idea of integrating to the Signature REST API yourself, you could use the Sign Portal, which is another no-code service we have. But unfortunately, that is also outside the scope of this startup offer. So basically, you can just tailor this the way it makes sense to you. This startup campaign is for Nordic startups. Soon we'll be getting MitID, which is the new NEM ID for the Danish market and here. So in the beginning, you get one EID scheme. And if you choose to continue with us, then obviously you can expand that and also expand out to other countries. So just to summarize, or to offer some information about the startup pack, you get the first 6 months free. There is no subscription cost. You get 500 authentications or 100 signing transactions included in a month, which should be enough for a young startup. But if not, well, then you're quite successful, I'm guessing. So you have to choose between authentication or signature. You can't have both, but you get to try it out for free. You get one identity method for one market, obviously. And like I mentioned, we do have very developer-friendly APIs. We do really, really try to make it as easy as possible for developers to use. And we do offer you full access to the test production and the environment production. So it's completely free for you to build this in the test environment. And only when you've sent it to production and are ready to start using it, does the 6-month clock start ticking, so to speak. So you can really spend as much time as you need, which, as I've shown, it can take quite short time without, any time running by. So yeah, like I said, we have this test and production environment. We have status pages showing the status of the different EIDs, documentation showing all the endpoints and all the parameters for the API. We have many quick start guides. We have video tutorials. If you have a question, we have the community to help you out. We really, really try to put developers first. But if you're not a developer, the OIDC could be maybe right for you. So who qualifies? Your startup has to be less than 3 years old or have less than 1 million euro in annual revenue or be a part of Finance Innovation's incubator program, which is probably why you're watching this. And like I mentioned, after that, you can choose to continue with a standard starter pack. Obviously, you don't need to do that if you don't want to, but it's up to you. And if you want to sign up, then you just click this link. It should also be in the information that is available via Finance Innovation, and just follow this step by step. But if you also go to regular onboarding for test account, there will be a promo code field. You can also just use that. And yes, it should be Startup 2021, but Startup 2020 also works. And yes, I think I am finished with my presentation bit. And now, unless there's any questions, we can go directly to my conversation with Sebastian. Okay, just to clarify, Sebastian, you do not qualify for the startup campaign because you're just way too successful. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about Cameo and your role in the company and who you guys are and how well you're doing.
Thanks. A super good offer, and people should really come running and try it out. Cameo is we are an investment platform for small savers and yeah, everyone who wants to invest and get a nice return, and they can log on to our platform and invest in property-backed loans across Scandinavia. So basically, you sign up using a company called Signicat, I think, to get onboarded in a few minutes, and then you can invest in a wide range of property loans across Scandinavia, get an average return of 9%. So that's what we do. We started this because we wanted everyone to get the opportunity to invest in projects that matter. We are around 38 employees now. and we've done 1.5 billion Norwegian kroner in loans so far. This year we will do another billion. We have a run right now around 80 to 100 million per month. Yeah, and we are backed by some really strong owners now. We have ABG Sundal Collier, the investment bank, as the largest shareholder, and then this winter we got Ilya Batljan, who is now the second largest shareholder in Cameo. So we are in the process of scaling up. As you said, I don't think we should say that we are really successful yet. It's a little bit too early, but we like to say that we're not a startup. But I have to admit that there's still a lot of startup things going on behind the doors.
Isn't that also a good thing, though? The people, scale-ups always talk about retaining the startup mentality. So
yeah, it could be boring if you have to be in a stable phase. It's all about doubling for us. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, because we go back quite a bit. You guys use the authentication service. Could you talk a little bit about how it supports your business, how you guys use it today?
Yeah, I mean, there's basically two main areas. First one is the onboarding of customers. When I first had the idea of Cameo, I went to London to conferences, and people were like bragging because they had been developing methods to take photos of passports and then matching, and it took forever for the customers to get onboarded online. While we've been using you guys, and it takes just a few minutes to do all the KYC, the know your customer, all the AML, anti-money laundering controls that we need to do, and it's very convenient for the customers to use Signicat to verify the address, the signature electronically, and also we can then check if you're a terrorist and all that stuff, and you can get onboarded, signed agreements with us in just a few minutes. And then the other thing is what our platform does is it's matching one borrowing company who's a property developer with thousands of small savers, and there's actually thousands of loan agreements in each transaction. So we built the platform around Signicat's sign-up services. So we then electronically sign these agreements between one borrower and then thousands of small savers in a very easy way. And it's quite complicated because it's a new concept in an old industry, or two old industries, finance and property, and you need to register pledges. That's, sometimes it's physical paper you need to send into Statens Kartverk and so on. But we're doing this now online thanks to you guys, and it's working really smoothly for us and also for the customers.
Yeah, because I remember when I signed up, it took very short time, as opposed to other banks I've tried to sign up with. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at one time I tried to create an account in one of the large Nordic banks, and I couldn't. It took me weeks, and then I said, okay, I want to tear up this agreement and get out. And they said, then you have to fill out these paperwork. So it took even, you couldn't get a customer, then you couldn't become a customer, you couldn't get out either.
Without naming names, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, but I mean, your industry is so fascinating. What does the market for crowd lending look like in the future? I think this is something that's just begun to surface to the consciousness of the average Norwegian consumer. But what does the future look like in Norway, do you think?
I think it will look like in Norway, like in the other Scandinavian countries. It's going to be similar to the development that we see in the UK and that we have seen before that in the US and in China and other large markets. And it's basically becoming a mainstream on both sides. It's becoming mainstream for the companies seeking funding, and the main reason for that is that banks prefer other to give out other loans because they have to put up a lot of equity when they lend to small businesses. It's deemed as the most risky thing that a bank can lend to. So they prefer to lend to you privately, backed against mortgage, or to larger companies. So it's becoming mainstream for like a funding source in the UK. We're talking maybe 20% of small companies get funding through platforms like Cameo.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and it's been a huge market growth for many years, and I think we are maybe 5, 6, 7 years behind in Scandinavia. And on the other side, for the investors or the small savers, I think, I mean, during the pandemic, people been flocking to the online platforms for shares, like Nordnet. But that's highly volatile. You can the value goes up and down. Our platforms is more stable. You get monthly return. Of course, it's going to be risky and you get losses. But compared to getting 0% interest rate in the bank, I think that this product will come as something between the stock markets and the bank account. So, and we see that also in the UK and the US, it's becoming like a mainstream saving product.
Yeah, and there's so many new projects coming in all the time. Like when I check my email, there's often something new.
Yeah,
from you guys.
That's a problem because people don't really have time, and sometimes you don't manage to invest in a loan. So we are launching our fund this month, like test fund, and then we will launch a larger fund next year. So you can actually invest passively, and then we invest for you.
Oh, that's interesting. That's really cool. I'm glad that's coming.
I think it's needed.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who have been a little bit haven't had the time to set myself into it. But yeah, now that this fund comes, that may change. But I know that things are always difficult when you start a startup. But what are the challenges ahead for you guys as a scale up, and actually for crowdlending as an industry? What do you think is going to be difficult, if anything?
Well, to answer the first question, I think for us personally, it's always, we're very proud of the track record. We have very few credit losses. It's 2 cases in Norway out of 400. So it's, in terms of volume, it's less than 0.2%. So we want to keep doubling the loan volumes, but keep the credit loss at a low level. So that's going to be a challenge, and also to keep growing without adding on the cost level. That's a challenge for us right now. I think for the industry, well, there's some good news coming with the new EU legislation. So it's going to be common regulation across Europe. That's a great advantage, but also brings some challenge, because then some of the large players in the UK might want to move or expand into our region. But I think that when you have a new concept in something like finance, the key is trust. So we are not afraid of serious competitors, but unserious competitors that do a lot of defaults or operates, in the gray markets a little bit. So I think that's a key thing for the industry, that we keep a good record, that we are really serious about important matters like anti-money laundering, and all that, so that we keep, as we grow the industry, it becomes also an industry or a concept that is connected with trust. Yeah,
because a few bad apples can really poison the whole barrel, but it's not something you can influence whether other actors are serious or not.
No, but we have a really good industry organization in Norway, so we're working with that, and that's a good way to align with the other platforms. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. What, besides, if we put aside challenges, what do you think are surprising trends and developments that we may not foresee in the industry? I think that people will take more and more charge of their own savings, and you've seen in Wall Street, and there's this activist retail investors messing a bit with the large institutions. Yeah. I remember when I was working at DNB, we're not allowed to book trips ourselves. We had a travel agency, and then all of a sudden Norwegian starting to make a super easy app, so I was actually allowed to book my own flights, and we were saving, because otherwise you have to pay the and it's the same in finance. I think you used to pay a lot of, those with a lot of cash paid a lot to asset managers, to advisors, to make good investments, but I don't think it really changes or improves the return that they get. And I think most people don't really are a VIP customer in some sort of asset management or a large bank. So I think people can do this themselves. It's always risky, but the good news with our concept is that you can spread investments across so many loans very easily. So you can sit at home, and then you can buy some shares at Nordnet, You can invest in crowdfunding loans through Cameo, and then you can save a little bit in your bank account, and you have managed yourself to get a really diversified, good portfolio. So I think it's kind of taking the power from the intermediaries and then just put it back in the hands of the people.
So basically, what you foresee for the future is that more and more private individuals will be acting as, investors, and there will be a lot higher influx of cash to these smaller businesses, and what that will is quite exciting to think about what how that will impact the economy as a whole. But
yeah, and also, for example, sustainable projects, we experience demands, strong demand for those type of investments. What we have is a kind of a democratic platform. So we have 40,000 investors, and if they want to go green, we have to come up with green projects. So they kind of decide this. It's not like we decide to offer something.
That's really interesting. I mean, do you have any other closing thoughts? I think we're perhaps ending the time allotted to us.
No, I think it's it was cool to listen in, and a great offer for the startups out there. And we are, as we talked about, not successful yet, but we are at least scaling up. So and we're happy for the product that we developed together to make it easy to sign electronic agreements. Really are.
So check out Signicat and check out Cameo.
Yes, you took the words right out of my mouth. Thank you for a very interesting and stimulating conversation, definitely. And can people also contact you guys if they have any questions?
This guy?
Yeah, both of you, I guess.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Very good. So, all right. Are we? I think we are going in for landing then. So thank you very much for tuning in, and get in touch if you have any further questions. So have a great day.
Yeah. Bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye.